And good morning. It's 8 o'clock, and it's great to see everyone here at the intersection this morning, where we gather at the intersection of faith, community, and civic leadership. We're going to spend a few minutes on announcements. That'll also give some of our latecomers just a couple more minutes to show up, right? So one announcement I want to share while there are others thinking about announcements, and I will put this information in chat, but this coming Monday, so I'm going to say it slowly so you can all be thinking about it while you hear it. This coming Monday at 11 a.m. to noon at Colonial Hills United Methodist Church. So I know you're all soaking this information in, right? There's going to be a presentation by the mayor at his home church. That's where he and his family go to church, Colonial Hills United Methodist. He's going to be speaking about Compassionate USA and how the faith community in San Antonio
Right now, I'm just going to
can partner with that and support that effort. So anyone is welcome to come. They are focusing, as we do in like Bridges to Care, where we focus on congregations in near geographic proximity working together. So Colonial Hills is working at inviting those congregations that are near to them to be there on Monday. But again, anyone can come. So I'm going to repeat that, and I'll also put it in chat. So the mayor will be speaking this coming Monday, May Day, May 1st, at, I'm sorry, my brain just sidetracked, May 1st at 11 a.m. to noon. He'll be speaking on Compassionate USA and how the local faith community can help with that. And anyone is invited. And if nothing else, you could come or send someone else, invite others, but come and kind of get a look-see of that. And if we might want to plan more of those, or you might want to plan one at your congregation or organization, and we can move that forward. I know that Emma, I don't know if Emma Alexander is with us this morning or not, but she's the chair. There she is. She's the chair of Healing San Antonio Collaborative. And she and Bishop Trevor Alexander, who she's married to, have requested something similar. And Emma, why don't you just say what that is, what you're planning?
Our Reformation, we get together on June the 17th, I think, to the 23rd, and we're asking for Ann and the mayor to come and share. We have different churches from around the state, the nation, and we want to share Compassionate USA with them. So once they hear that, they can go back to their cities and share it, and it'd be just spread abroad. And the information that Ann has shared with us with Healing SA, it is going to be phenomenal. Those who already did the CIT training, it just takes it up to another level. And so we're wanting to hope that other churches, not just in San Antonio, and I know Mayor's vision is for all the states. When our churches come, we would love to have them come and present. And ours is in June. So thank you, Ann.
So yeah, Emma's ahead of the tide here. So again, I'll put that into chat. So we're at 8:04, and I know we have another announcement, but it leads right into our briefing. And I know that Lisa is with us. Lisa, can you tell us something about the 4-part series that is designed specifically for people here at the intersection and other faith and community leaders? Lisa, are you with us?
Yeah, hi. So our collaborative from this group that we've been working on is domestic violence. And we've done, I think we're making a lot of progress, and our next thing is really big. I put the link in the chat. We're having a 4-part training for faith leaders on domestic violence starting May 11th. It's going to be 4 Thursdays, 11:30 to 12:30 on Zoom. And if you click on the link, it has the topics covered. We're going to bring in experts to train in each session. Hearing, helping, healing, and acting are the 4 topics. A lot of really good actionable items that will be really helpful for faith leaders. We hope to, just build a community where there's less domestic violence.
Thank you, Lisa. And you probably can see, I shared screen, and I will be sending out this registration link. There's a campaign that's coming forward, and maybe we'll hear about that after we first hear from Krista. So Krista, I know that you're with us. I have been informed by the powers that be that Krista is here. And so I want to invite you to open your mic, and we'll get you on screen. But as you all know, because I put it out in the notification, Krista Del Gallo is the legislative director with the Texas Council on Family Violence. And so Krista, it's great to have you here this morning. This group, this intersection of faith, community, and civic leaders began with COVID right after in April of that year. And we've been meeting every Thursday. Initially, it was almost all COVID. That was the point. But then, of course, it grew into other things. And the first thing that it kind of moved into, the very first was the rise in domestic violence during COVID. And then we've just gone all different and many important directions since then. But here we are, still talking about domestic violence. So, Krista, thank you for being here this morning, and tell us what you know about what's happening.
Well, thank you so much. It's so nice to be here with y'all from San Antonio, and I just want to commend this group and each of you for coming together. This is such a neat and strategic, and I would also probably assume synergistic for you as individuals and each other for your community, that you all started coming together during the public health emergency and continue to see value in just learning about different topics and seeing how you can take action on behalf of your community. So just really impressed, as always, with what comes out of San Antonio. And one of the first things I'd like to just impart to y'all, and let me again introduce myself. I'm Krista Del Gallo. I'm the legislative director at the Texas Council on Family Violence. I've been with the Texas Council on Family Violence since 2002. So this is my 21st year with the policy team there. My first session was the 78th session. We're now on the 88th. And I actually my last little road trip that I made before I had my daughter, who is now 20 years old, was to the Peace Initiative in San Antonio. I think probably if my midwife would have known I was so close to delivering, she would have said, maybe don't drive to San Antonio the Friday before you go to labor on a Tuesday. But but I did, and it was wonderful. And I just always have fond and great memories of all the great work that happens in your city and county. And one of the things I would just say is the most important about being effective advocates with the state legislature is that both during, but particularly after and in the interim of legislative sessions, because as you all know, we run a biennial legislature, so they only meet January through May of the odd years, is to make sure that you are very familiar and know your state representatives and state senators. And that will be incredibly important, because when we see a bill that's before a committee and say, oh, the chair of this committee is from Bexar County, or the person that has a lot of questions on this issue and that doesn't quite understand how it's going to help their constituents is from San Antonio, what we tend to do is we want to look to San Antonio, Bexar County folks to reach out and talk to that member, because that has so much more impact than us as a statewide agency and a coalition that is based in Austin reaching out. One of the things that we found is that a lot of times when we reach out to folks, and this is predominantly we haven't had this experience with San Antonio this session, but outside of San Antonio saying, hey, do you know your members a budget conferee, or your members has questions on this particular item that's a priority for us, and we have local domestic violence advocates and supporters saying, no, we've never met them. And that puts everyone, including survivors who are advocacies on behalf of, at a disadvantage, because that means that groundwork and that foundation of the relationships and that trust hasn't yet been made. So I can't emphasize strongly enough how important it is to identify your state reps and senators. And you can do that. I just pulled it up on Texas Legislature Online. If you just put in Bexar County, because you have your particular ones that serve you, your one senator, one rep for, where you live. But if you serve a congregation that invites folks in from across the county or across the city, you're gonna have several folks that really you are constituents of. And it's important just to identify those folks and invite them in when you all are having wonderful gatherings like this and otherwise, so that they are really familiar with you, so that when you pick up the phone and give them a call at the Capitol office when they're super busy in the middle of session and say, hey, this bill, Senate Bill 1841, is really important to us. They'll be like, oh, I'm going to definitely listen, because these folks are really concerned and informed about domestic violence and survivor issues. So I'm going to take that into account in my vote. So that's sort of job number one of effective advocacy, is just to make sure that you're very familiar and you're meeting with your state reps and senators. And the
Krista,
other,
that's a great, great where we need to be. Can you give us an update on what's happening in terms of legislation? That's what that would be great.
Absolutely. So for TCFV priorities, every session, our job number one is appropriations or funding for our family violence centers. And this session is no different. We are asking for an increase in exceptional item funding rider that would enhance capacity and also allow for modest funding for each of our programs to incorporate more prevention strategies into their work. And there's a particular rider, and one of the things that's important in the way the appropriations process works is we're at the point where both the House has a budget bill and the Senate has a budget bill. The House's budget bill includes the funding that we are advocating for and seeking. The Senate budget bill does not. And so the House and the Senate have both appointed what are called budget conferees. That's 5 members of the House, 5 members of the Senate that are going to iron out the differences and come to one final version of the Texas budget. And so right now, our focus is with those conferees. In fact, right after this, I'm going to the Capitol and going to be meeting with some of the offices in both the House and Senate of those conferees to urge them to make sure to include the rider that increases funding for family violence services. And after this, I have the email so I can send out specific fact sheets, because there's so many bill numbers and the rider is in the numbers of hundreds and it's really, really particular. So it's better to have it in print, and I can give really specific, instructions about what's the next best advocacy step. But that's where we are with the budget. So we're really working right now with the conferees. At this time, none of the Senate or House conferees are out of San Antonio. So we don't have any action items currently for you all to do right now, because again, the most compelling advocacy is with members that you can say, I am a constituent of you, or I serve your constituents. So that's where appropriations are. In terms of our substantive priorities, we have a bill that would update the chapter that really regulates family violence center services in the state of Texas. This hasn't been updated in over 20 years. That bill is Senate Bill 1841. We're in a good place with that bill. It has passed all the way through the Senate, and it's come over to the House. It is now before the House Human Services Committee. I just looked up who's on the House Human Services Committee, and Representative Allison, who does serve San Antonio, serves on that committee. And so I will again include this in an update for you all so that you can see, who the strategic person to make outreach to is. So since the Senate bill's all the way over there, and the House bill did pass through that same Health and Human Services Committee, what they intend to do is swap out the Senate bill for the House bill on the floor, and then we'll need folks to call all of their House members to support a vote for Senate Bill 1841 on the House floor. As you all probably know, because we have two chambers at the Texas legislature, a bill has to make its way through both. So sometimes you have a Senate version and a House version, and they both sort of run their course, but one of those bills has to make it through both chambers, and not just through one. So they have to pass out through the full House and the full Senate in order to go to the governor's desk for signature. The next priority that I'm going to talk about is House Bill 698. This would codify the option for a protective order applicant to request to attend the hearings and proceedings remotely. We saw this as a huge benefit to survivors during the pandemic, that when contemplating application for a protective order, a lot of survivors, when they were informed of what the process would entail, they thought, wait, and I'm going to have to go down to the courthouse, stand in front of a judge. The abuser is going to be right next to me, and I'm going to have to just relay all the details of the abuse to the judge while they're right there. That doesn't feel safe physically, emotionally, in any way. And we saw that many more survivors considered applying for protective orders over the public health emergency when those court proceedings were occurring virtually. And so we want to permanentize that option. Not that every survivor always has to do that, but we want to make sure that survivors for whom that would be more appropriate and feel safer in their protective order application process, that they can request to do so and be present virtually. House Bill 698 passed through the House Juvenile Justice and Family Issues Committee. Representative Lujan, who is out of San Antonio, is the vice chair of that committee. Again, it has passed out of that committee, and it's currently with a committee called the Calendars Committee. The Calendars Committee doesn't really have public hearings on bills. What they do is they just get to determine which bills actually are scheduled for the House floor for a vote. So we're currently working with the Calendars Committee members to encourage them to schedule House Bill 698 for a vote. Again, I looked up the Calendars Committee, and they do not have members from San Antonio specifically on that committee, but once it gets out of Calendars, again, it'll be voted on the full House floor. The next bill I want to talk about is House Bill 3938. Again, I'll send you all of these with hyperlinks to the bill language on Texas Legislature Online, and a little update about where they are and if there's any action items at this time. House Bill 3938 is our priority around reducing firearm-related domestic violence. The bill is authored by Representative Moody out of El Paso. It is currently still in the House Select Committee on Community Safety. That committee is chaired by Ryan Guillen, who is out of the Rio Grande Valley. we haven't seen that committee vote this bill out yet. And so we will have an action item around House Bill 3938, which would require, once a court has admonished someone because either they're a protective order respondent, they're receiving a condition of bond that prohibits firearm possession, or because they were just convicted or received deferred adjudication of a qualifying crime involving family violence that makes them a prohibited possessor, that once they admonish them, they also have to provide a written warning to that respondent or defendant detailing that they are a prohibited possessor under state law and for the amount of time. And then also require that person, the defendant or the respondent, to return an affidavit to the court detailing either whether or not they have firearms, and if they did possess firearms, what they have done to dispose of those firearms temporarily. So either demonstrating a bill of sale or saying, my brother lives a county over, this is where all of my guns are going to go. That might sound like, I don't know if I really trust folks to do that, but it's way more than what we have right now. What we have right now is maybe a court admonishing someone and then nothing else. So this at least will prompt some level of accountability and next steps for both the defendants and for the courts around firearm transfer protocols. And I see that Lisa has her hand up. If Lisa wanted to unmute.
Yeah, hi. So I had a question about that. First of all, I think that's fantastic, but wasn't there a court case recently that said that that came down against this idea of taking firearms away from people with protective orders?
Yes. There's a federal court case, and if you're following the courts and the federal courts in particular, Texas has really handed down our federal courts some doozies over the last couple of months. And one of them was a Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals decision. Again, that's a federal court, and the case is called Rahimi. And what that court case said was that the federal firearm prohibitions for protective order respondents, so not the Texas state ones, the federal firearm prohibitions for protective order respondents violated the Second Amendment. That case is going before the Supreme Court of the United States. The Texas Council on Family Violence has signed on to an amicus in support of other domestic violence coalitions and gun violence prevention advocacy groups to compel the Supreme Court to reverse that Fifth Circuit Court decision. Again, the Fifth Circuit Court opinion only applies to the federal firearm protections. So we still have in the state of Texas state firearm prohibitions for protective order respondents, but obviously this creates a ton of confusion. We've already heard from folks in different jurisdictions across our state that some judges are just crossing out the firearm warning language on protective orders or refusing to issue protective orders that include firearm prohibitions, which currently is not valid under Texas state law, but they do have an ongoing federal court opinion that as of right now is saying those federal prohibitions violate the Second Amendment. There's a lot more going on around that case, and I'm happy to connect folks with the groups that are doing advocacy around that. There was also a whole group of prosecutors that submitted a separate amicus to the Supreme Court on this decision and on this case, urging the Supreme Court to take it up because it is so incredibly dangerous to think that we would not be able to pass laws in our country or in our states that precluded dangerous individuals from possession of firearms.
So Krista, I'm happy to hear that you guys are involved in that. What can we do to get this HB 3938? It sounds like it's more important than ever then. What can we do to help get it over the finish line?
Right now, I just reached out to Representative Moody, whose office is that filed the bill, because they'll know better than anything. They're on the inside, what is needed, where there might be someone that's on the committee that has issues that's holding it up. So usually it's targeted intervention with a member that is like, I just really don't like this. And so we're trying to find out if that's the case, or if it would just be helpful for advocates from all over, even not in a member's district, to call, say, Chair Guillen's office and say, we really want to see this voted out of your committee. This is a priority to us. Again, sometimes we weigh whether or not that is going to be effective, because typically members respond mostly to their own constituents. And so someone from the Rio Grande Valley might be it might be more compelling to have folks that are their constituents calling them. So I will definitely send it out, and with some information about what could be the most helpful next step for that particular piece. And the last priority of TCFV that I'll mention is around updating our stalking statute in the penal code. Our bill is Senate Bill 1841. That bill has also made its way all the way through the Senate, and it is now in the House. And it's been referred to the House Committee on Criminal Jurisprudence. The chair of that committee is Joe Moody. He has agreed to sponsor that bill, which means that it should be heard in that committee and hopefully will have a great chance of passage out of House Criminal Jurisprudence. Again, I'll send you these updates and links to these committees so you can see who the membership is for each of the committees. But that's the last stage. So our stalking bill and our Family Violence Service Center bill are in really good shape because they've already come over from the Senate and they're in the House and poised to be passed. Our protective order bill for virtual hearings and this firearm protocol process bill needs some more help to get voted out of the House so that they can actually go through the Senate. So we're really doing a lot of pushing. I'll say, and I'll include this in follow-up materials, we have a good amount of other bills that have come up this session that we're really excited about. Several that pertain to the family code that would be really helpful for domestic violence survivor parents and their children. And I'll include those in my update so you can see those and where they are. We also have a bill out that was authored by Representative Josie Garcia, House Bill 3788. It would really bolster the teen dating violence prevention and healthy education efforts in schools and ensure that school districts have policies in place and are prioritizing this type of education and prevention efforts in their schools. It would also require training on teen dating violence for school resource officers, who oftentimes are a first point of contact. And that again is House Bill 3788. It's by Representative Josie Garcia, who is out of San Antonio. We've been working a ton with her office. I know that the Family Violence Prevention and Services Program Teen Youth Advisory Board met with Rep Garcia, particularly on this bill, and worked on some language tweaks with her. She's just been a phenomenal champion. This session, we're actually, TCFV is releasing, we always do honor mothers on Mother's Day. Similarly, we honor fathers on Father's Day, and this Mother's Day, we will be honoring Representative Josie Garcia out of San Antonio. She shared at a recent press conference that she is also a survivor family violence herself, and she's just been a huge champion. So I really encourage y'all to reach out to her and thank her for her support and just support her in her efforts at the legislature. The other thing that you can do to always help our efforts at the legislature is to become a member of the Texas Council on Family Violence. That will plug you in to all of the work at TCFB. And on our website, there's a way to join a listserv called Capital Crew. And that is where we will be sending alerts when bills do go to the House or Senate floor, so that it would be applicable to everyone across the state to call upon their representative or senator to advocate for or against a particular measure. I'll pause there because I know we're at 8:30.
So, Krista, it's great that you've told us all this and also how to connect. I'm willing to stay on for another 15 with all those who want to do likewise, if you're available to stay on, Krista, for just a few more, because I know there's interest out there. But would you be willing, and some people have been asking too, Lisa, about you, would you be willing to put your email in chat? So people can connect directly with you. And Lisa, there's some people wanting to connect with you as well. So Krista, can you stay with us a little bit longer? You can say no if you need to move on.
I absolutely can stay for 15 more, and then I'll have to head out because I've got a 9:15 at the Capitol. But I'm gonna put my email in chat, and happy to answer questions. And again, I will follow up with this group with something that y'all can distribute to everyone that's on today with all these, because there's so many bill numbers. I'm starting to get a little bit crazy in my head with all the different numbers floating around, but so that you have them on hand and be ready to come back to take action when it's time.
Thank you, Krista. Others, do you have questions, thoughts, comments? I encourage you to either, raise your hand or just kind of jump in. And I'm also wondering if there's something, Krista, that you still want to make sure is said this morning before you leave us that you haven't gotten to yet.
I feel like I'll wait when I send the materials. I think that will be really helpful, because that'll be a more specific dive into what you can do and where each of these measures are at. It's a changing landscape every day. So we're constantly trying, where I was saying, like, where, if you've heard of, the Sisyphus, we're at that time period in the legislative session where we're just really trying to continue to move something up a hill. And at this point, it feels like putting all of our strength behind it. And our strength really is folks across the state that are behind us, that are constituents of the members, that can reach out and underscore and bolster our support. Because again, we're there every day, and they see us as a statewide, Austin-based organization, but they see each of you as their constituents and people that know their community members. And so it is incredibly important to have relationships with your state elected officials, so that when we are saying, hey, this bill that's important is before the whole House floor, that your voice matters even more so, not just as a constituent, but as someone that they've identified as an informed and trusted person on these issues.
Thank you, Krista. You've gotten some kudos and thank yous in chat, so you might want to scroll there. Also, Lisa has reminded us about the upcoming 4-part training for faith, community, and civic leaders, but specifically we're looking at faith community, congregations, clergy. So you can scroll up, it's there in chat. That begins May 11th, so it's just around the corner, and it is virtual. So any other questions, comments, thoughts for Krista or the greater good? I'll
wait for the questions, but I'll just say that I'm excited to hear about your 4-part series. One of the survivors that we're working with that is an incredible advocate at this point. She got her master's in divinity and counseling, and she is working specifically on publishing a book for members of the clergy on domestic violence. We also were just working with a survivor. Again, she's about 10 years out of her situation and is also in seminary right now. And I just wanted to say, like, you all are right at this intersection where we just see so many survivors that as they become advocates, they also become spiritual or faith leaders. And that's such an important part of their healing process. And that they're really doing that great work to meld healing together with spirit. And I just wanted just to say that because it's something that has struck me, that we've seen it sort of reiterated in several different cases of some amazing survivor advocates that are also working towards becoming faith leaders themselves. And so it's just great.
So I wonder, Krista, if you could send me or connect me with those names,
Yeah,
because we might want to invite them to be a part of the series somehow.
yeah.
But also send me the information that you've been talking about, and then I'll send it out to everybody at the intersection. So if you could send
Absolutely.
that to me, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Other thoughts or questions? Oh, yeah, and Karen Ball has asked, can you pass along the titles of those books? But as I understood it, they're in writing or
They're in publishing
process.
contract. Yeah, the one is in publishing contract, but I certainly will share Janice's contact information. She's the person that is writing the book. She's also serves on the board. Both of these survivors I'm mentioning, Janice serves on the board for the Family Violence Center in Waco. And the other survivor that just came and testified twice this session on our family violence services, Bill, she serves on the board of the family violence program in Tarrant County. And she's the one that's also currently in seminary. So, and she's really interested in getting involved. So I will absolutely pass their names along as well, so y'all can connect.
Thanks, Krista. Yep, we got even some clapping going on. Again, one last, any other comments or questions? Well, Krista, thank you so very much. I'm glad I finally got to meet you. Patricia talks about you and how amazing you are. And so we've all found out today how amazing you are. And so thank you for being with us today. Thank you, everyone, for being with us today at the intersection as we hear more about domestic violence and how we can help prevent that, engage, make changes, change the numbers, change them to no numbers. That would be really great. So try not to fiesta too much in the next couple days, but don't miss it either. We've got pretty nice weather this year. And so it's one of those years you could actually not fry in the middle of it, I think. So take care. I'll see you next week at the intersection.
Thank you so much, Hel.
Thank you, Krista.